Are you ready for day 5? This one is going to be awesome, and I really hope that you find value in this little bit of advice. Day 5 is about how to recover from relationship conflicts. And so here are a few things that I have learned about relationships and how to avoid or recover from conflicts. First of all, don't get into an argument when you're stressed out. That's a great way to avoid having conflict in the first place. Step away from the discussion, do one of the other coping strategies that I recommend in this 30-day challenge, and then come back to it with a clear head so that it doesn't escalate and become worse. That's a really important tool, is always remain present to the situation. I interviewed Jeannie Sisko-Meth about how to diffuse a bully, and one of the ways that she recommends is to help get them in the present, to engage their frontal thinking lobes of their brains, so that because bullying or picking fights and things like that is really an emotional reaction to something or a response to a stressor. So here's Jeannie explaining ways that you can diffuse a bully.
The biggest thing to remember is that hurt people hurt people.
Yeah.
And so when somebody is saying something to you, they're trying to hurt you, not because, but it's because they hurt.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with you other than that. They want to bring you down. They want to make you hurt because they hurt. Mm-hmm. And that's what the second part of my book has to do with. Why do people bully? And it gives a perspective shift to hurt people hurt people. Mm-hmm. And so in the midst of somebody attacking you or somebody saying something to you, if you can tame your own bullies in your head and remember that hurt people and love them, love the people, love them, show them love and respect. And then it goes through some very, in the other part of the book, it goes through some very specific planned responses that you can use so that you can stop the bullying attack, but you don't attack the other person. So one scenario that I talk about in the book, and it's written for high school, middle, high, and high school students. So most of the scenarios have to do with school. But you can obviously switch the scenarios any way you want. So let's say you get to school and you're walking into the school building and somebody tells you your outfit, that's the stupidest outfit I've ever seen. I've had that happen to me before. I grew up on a dairy farm and then I moved to the city and I still liked my overalls.
Nice.
So you walk into school and like, that's the stupidest outfit I've ever seen. First of all, you got to remember, hey, I like this. This is what I'm wearing. Hurt people hurt people. And so then you ask a question because we're raised to answer questions, right? Mm-hmm. So you can say, hey, what time did you get to school today? Because when somebody is hurting, they're reacting, they're in their reactive brain, the reptilian brain, their brainstem. Mm-hmm. There's a whole bunch of names for it, but they're not thinking. Yeah. They're not in their thinking brain. When you ask them a question, they move into their right mind, so to speak, their thinking brain. So they go from pain and hurt to focusing on, well, what time did I get here? Mm-hmm. Right? Or you can ask them, hey, what's your first class? Or what's your favorite class? Or, what's for lunch today? But it shifts. You can use it kind of like NLP. Tony Robbins talks a lot about that pattern interrupt. And so by asking that question, it's a pattern interrupt for them. And it bumps them off of, I'm going to hurt somebody, which is not a conscious thought. It's absolutely subconscious. But it bumps them into thinking, and then they're like, oh, and it will move them.
Jeannie's so terrific, isn't she? I love talking to her, and that was great advice. Some more advice that I like to give is to go to the website teachingselfgovernment.com, and Nicolene Peck has a lot of great advice on there about how to manage our relationships, that we need to first establish rules and standards and roles so that we're clear about what we're doing, what is expected, and what the standards are, so that you just avoid conflict because you understand each other and what's expected. And so some of the things that I learned from Nicolene are the 4 principles that she talks about are accepting a no answer, disagreeing appropriately, accepting consequences, and learning to say okay. I think that a lot of conflict can be avoided if we know how to disagree appropriately and not just debate or argue. Our family does this all the time. Our kids have learned that when they whine and cry about something, and I just say, you guys, you don't get anything you want by whining and crying like that. And they calm down and they say, Mom, I want to disagree appropriately. I really want to have that cookie, but I know you don't want me to have it. Can I please disagree appropriately and have that cookie? And I'll just say, wow, thank you for disagreeing appropriately. This is all dialogue that Nicolene Peck has talked about on her website and in her resources. It's really interesting. And I'll say, thank you for disagreeing appropriately. We're going to have dinner soon, and so I don't want you to eat that cookie. And then they say, oh, I understand now, because we were able to have a discussion. It wasn't just, no, you can't have that cookie. Well, why? Because I said so, or whatever. We were able to talk about it. And then they learn the principle of accepting a no answer, because when you think about it, in life we get a lot of no answers from people and from situations, and that we need to accept that no answer, respect their boundaries, respect the rules and the standards and the roles that people establish for themselves, and just say okay and let it go. I think that a lot of problems could be avoided if we could just let it go. And accepting the consequences, because I think that when we avoid responsibility, that's a big conflict stressor source. And so accepting that responsibility, accepting the consequence, accepting ownership over our choices, you can avoid a lot of disagreements with people by accepting those things. Another great book is Crucial Conversations. And that's when I learned that when you address a situation or a person about something, if they get defensive, they resort to either silence or violence. And so they feel unsafe. And so to establish safety again, that's the first step when somebody resorts to silence or violence during a discussion. And so you show them that you care about their interests, you care about them, and that reestablishes safety for them. So that was one really good tip from that book. Another thing is from this book called The Anatomy of Peace. And in that book, I learned about how we need to keep and maintain the view of one another as human beings, and not to try and justify our behaviors because of our beliefs about them, or viewing them as objects and not as people. And so that's a really great and important tip, is always maintain empathy and compassion when you're in a discussion or in a conflict. So those are some of my tips, and I hope you found them useful. Please share this video if you did find it useful, and subscribe to the emails to learn more of my tips about this and the other coping strategies in this 30-day challenge. Thanks again for following along. Be sure to share this with your friends. Send them to homeandfamilyculture.com/cope to catch all the videos in the 30-day challenge. And then head over to Instagram and find me at Family Culture Podcast. Tag me in your stories and tell me about how this series is making an impact on you. Tell me how this particular coping strategy is impacting you, and tag me and use the hashtag #FamilyCopingSkills. Thank you so much for following along. You can also email me if you have questions or insights or anything you want to share at jody@homeandfamilyculture.com. Thank you so much.